Now, there's a great juxtaposition in Japan when it comes to the well, let's call it the washroom department. On the one hand, you have these incredible, all singing, all dancing, modern Japanese toilets. Now, these have, frankly, an endless list of functions, auto flush, auto lid use, heated seats, bidet function, music playing, scented toilets. The list goes on, and it's just chef's kiss, in my opinion. It's got so many functions. Now, on the other hand, when you're a tourist in Japan, in my experience, you have the risk at any given moment of encountering the more traditional toilet, which is essentially a hole in the ground. Now, obviously, it goes without saying that it's entirely up to people who are actually resident in Japan at what they prefer and what system they want to use. This is just my observation as a past visitor. Now, also, there are entirely valid reasons for people to want to use the older models. For one thing, it seems like a certain segment of the population just seems to prefer them for whatever reason, which entirely they're right. And also, there are associated health benefits with using them rather than more modern toilets. And also, they're a bit cheaper for obvious reasons compared to these ultra-modern toilets with all the functions, as well as generally being a bit more efficient. However, as they say, demographics is destiny, and it's recently been reported in a survey in Japan that a little bit over 1 in 4 of people who are school age in Japan will not use them, refuse to use squatter toilets, are uncomfortable with them, and something like half of those surveyed also have just some degree of resistance to them, which suggests that perhaps the older models, the squatter-style toilet, is not long for this world. Now, in contrast, only 22.4% of those surveyed on this issue had no objection whatsoever and were entirely happy to use them. So just about a fraction of the population, 1 in 4. You could also pair this up with the general observation that Japan tends to sort of favour building new houses, having more modern houses, as opposed to preserving older buildings, as you might see in the UK, for example, to sort of preserving houses for longer periods of time. That would lead to greater churn and replacement of toilets as a result. Indeed, it's been reported before that these older style squatter toilets are generally declining. It's been speculated about that in Japan, and even ahead of the 2020 Olympics, it was reported there was a drive generally to entirely replace them. Now, I don't believe, just on personal anecdote and observation, that that's quite happened, but that suggests that the sort of the turnover and the change rate is heading towards sort of the replacement with these more modern ones. So when you factor in this sort of emerging attitude among younger people about the older systems, the fact that there's an increasing amount of tourism and sort of drive to modernise toilets in Japan based on this, and the sort of tendency in Japan to sort of modernise and build new houses fairly regularly as well, I think generally you could maybe observe that this old system's days are numbered.